What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Bit of Footy YouTube channel. Today we're doing another tier list. Today I'm going to be doing a tier list on if I loved watching teams in 2021, if I liked watching teams, if I didn't mind watching teams, or if I hated watching teams. So those are all the tiers on this tier list. I'm going to run through every single team, give a good reason to why I'm putting them in a certain tier, and yeah, it's just going to work like that pretty much. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Obviously, before this video starts, I would like to say thank you so much for getting me to 1k subs. In particular, thank you so much to Cardman22 for helping me get to this milestone. It's been a long time coming, I will say that, but yeah, we're here now, so hopefully we can just keep on rising up. And yeah, so let's just get straight into the tier list. I'm going to start off with the Adelaide Crows. I'm going to put it in, I didn't mind watching the Adelaide Crows this season. Nothing special about the Adelaide Crows this season. Obviously, they had a few good games. I remember watching their game against Geelong in round 1, where they caused that special upset. Besides that game, they had a few other good games this season. They beat the D's by 1 point. They beat the Hawks later on in the season at Marvel. They had a decent game in the showdown. But yeah, I didn't mind watching the Crows footy this season. You know, they were trying something new. They're in a rebuilding stage. So yeah, it was good. Hopefully next season they play some even better footy. They're getting Jordan Dawson, who we all know is a pretty good user of the footy. So yeah, I'm gonna say I didn't mind watching the Crows season this season. Busy Lions, I'm gonna put in, I liked watching their season unfold. They had a 50-50 start to the season, but then they got back into the rhythm of things, the Lions, and they eventually made it into the top 4. It was a real story this season. They were outside the top 4 for the majority of the season, and in the last round they were able to sneak in to the top 4 by percentage. But yeah, I really enjoy the Lions brand of footy that they produce week in, week out. So I liked watching their season this season. Carlton, I'm going to put them in, I didn't mind watching. Nothing special from the Blues this season. But yeah, they're trying things a little bit different. Obviously, they've been in a rebuilding stage for quite a while now, and Blues fans are obviously looking for them to come out of that rebuilding stage and finally get close to making finals or make finals. But yeah, I didn't mind watching Carlton this season. Their ball movement wasn't the best this season, but they had a few good games. I'd say a few good games against the likes of Essendon, and then the likes of Freo, obviously, as well. So yeah, I'm going to put them in, I didn't mind watching them. Collingwood, my footy club, my team that I support, I'm going to go, I hated watching their season. Obviously, as a Pies supporter, I'll just give my opinion straight out flat. Really disappointing season from my boys this season. They had a few good games in there, obviously. Games against Adelaide, Melbourne, Richmond, and then West Coast at the far end of the season. Besides that, we sort of parked the bus at the later end of this season. It was a disappointing season at hand. We had a few okay games against a few oppositions, but yeah, majority of the season was, lose 3 quarters and then come back in the last quarter to lose by a point. So it was a very disappointing season to watch. They put me through a lot of heartbreak, Collingwood, so I'm going to put them in, I hated watching them this season. Essendon, I didn't mind watching them this season. They had a few games that they played okay in this season. I would say they played okay against the D's. They played okay against the Cats. They caused an upset against the Dogs as well. So they had an okay season, the Bombers, which is why I'm going to put them in, I didn't mind watching them. They also had that, they had that great win against the Saints, which happened in the early parts of the season as well, which their youngsters really showed up in. And obviously at Dreamtime, they had a good game against the Tigers as well in that game as well. So yeah, I didn't mind watching the Bombers season. Wasn't their best season, wasn't their worst season. So yeah, didn't mind watching them. Freo Dockers, I actually liked watching the Dockers this season. Their growth this season was all right. They came close to making the top 8. Obviously, it was a slim chance of them making the top 8. But yeah, I didn't mind watching their season. I liked watching their season. The youngsters definitely grew this season. They finally won a derby after how many derby losses. And the vibe of Optus Stadium when Freo are up and about, it's a really joyful thing to watch on the telly. So I liked watching the Dockers season. The Geelong Cats, I didn't mind watching their season. The Cats brand of footy is not my favourite brand of footy to watch. Obviously, they've got a lot of older players, so they're not going to have a lot of fast-paced movement of the footy. It's more a slow build-up, a more structured build-up, to kick goals and all that. So yeah, I'm going to put the Cats in. I didn't mind watching. Gold Coast Suns, unfortunately, I'm going to put in. I hated watching this season. Again, nothing too special from the Gold Coast Suns this season. They had their, normal season where they beat 3 or 4 teams, and then they lose the rest of their games. So yeah, I hated watching their season. It was just an average season from Gold Coast. GWS, I'm going to say didn't mind watching their season. They had, a few okay games against oppositions, like the Swans, I would say. I definitely enjoyed their games against the Swans. There was that one where Josh Kelly got the job, kicked that goal to get the Giants over the line by, I think, 2 points. And then there was that controversial win where Toby Green did, something a bit dodgy. But the Giants played a great game of footy that game and got the job done by 1 point. I particularly liked watching the Giants' defence in that game against the Swans. It really stood up. It was a young defence as well. I didn't mind watching the Giants season this season. Hawthorn, like the Giants, I didn't mind watching their season. I liked watching their youngsters this season as well. I'd say my favourite youngster to watch from the Hawks this season was Dylan Moore in the forward line. He's a great young small forward. He's a very talented small forward as well. And, a few games that, they really should, put up a fight in were obviously the game against the Tigers where they drew, against the D's where they drew as well. And, they beat the Pies, they beat a few other teams. They had that amazing win on Anzac Day by 3 points as well. So yeah, they really showed a bit of growth this season, especially with the youngsters that they have in their squad. So yeah, I didn't mind watching Hawthorn this season. The Melbourne Football Club I'm going to put in. I loved watching. Obviously, they won the granny, but I just really enjoyed watching them. I loved watching Bailey Fritz, just snag goals on the weekend. Keziah Pickett, he's a great player to watch as well. I really enjoyed watching the D's this season. I'd say my favourite game to watch that the D's played in was their comeback against Geelong at the Cattery. That was a great game to watch, and that was probably the setup for them to win the grand final this season. So yeah, I'm going to put in loved watching. North Melbourne, didn't mind watching them. Didn't mind watching them at all. They put in a few good efforts here and there. I loved watching Cam Zerhard grow in the forward line. Obviously, Larkey as well. Then you had the likes of Taron Thomas show a bit of growth as well. I think my favourite game of them was when they defeated the Hawks in Tassie, when they came back from a margin to defeat the Hawks. And so I didn't mind watching North Melbourne this season. Port Adelaide, I liked watching Port Adelaide this season. Their youngsters were very, very good this season. The likes of Butters, Dersmar, Rosie, they all played spectacularly. Well, they played pretty decent for the majority of the season. So I really liked watching Port Adelaide, how they went about it this season. Richmond, didn't mind watching Richmond this season. It was definitely an up and down season for them. Lost a few star players, so you got to excuse them on that manner. But so do, a lot of teams lose a lot of star players midway through the season, so it's not really an excuse for how they went. Richmond, they, like I said before, had a few up and down games this season. I'd say I really enjoyed their game where they came back against North Melbourne. I didn't think they were going to win that game. I thought North had it in the bag, but they played a great brand of footy. Then the game against Essendon at the Dreamtime game really just showed how they're never going to give up from a fight in that game. So I didn't mind watching Richmond at all this season. St Kilda, hated watching them. I went to the majority of St Kilda games, and I know Pat and Geordie, if they watch this video, are going to say please never go to St Kilda games ever again, because the majority of St Kilda games I went to, St Kilda lost. besides the Collingwood game, obviously. But I was supporting Collingwood in that game and not St Kilda. But yeah, I sort of hated watching St Kilda's season this season. I'd say a lot of Saints fans will agree with me on this statement, but they did let a lot of St Kilda fans down this season. So yeah, I sort of hated watching their season this season. Sydney, I loved watching Sydney this season. Their brand of footy was spectacular this season, and I would say my favourite game was when they played the Tigers at the MCG. No one thought they were going to win that game, and they just came out absolutely shining. The youngsters showed up to that game. Tom Papley was, a light of other days this season. He played some really good footy this season, Tom Papley. Obviously, Buddy Franklin played some really good footy as well, but he's Buddy Franklin. And yeah, their whole team just worked really well together this season. Unfortunately, they got knocked out in the elimination final. But besides that, they played some really good footy for the majority of the season. So I loved watching the Swans play. West Coast Eagles, hated watching them play. The Eagles, I don't really like the brand of footy that they played this season. I thought it was a bit average to watch on the telly. And yeah, I thought they, really just parked the bus for the majority of the season. While towards the back end of the season, they parked the bus, I'd say. And yeah, I just really hated watching the Eagles this season. And last but not least, we have the Doggies. I'm going to put them in. I loved watching the Dogs this season. Their brand of footy is a brand of footy that I really enjoy watching. Made it to the grand final, put up a fight, and for the majority of the season, they just put up a fight in most games. They won most of their games as well. So yeah, it was a great season for the Dogs. They made it all the way to the granny. They had to go the hard way to make it to the granny as well. They went through the elimination final, the semi, and the preliminary final to make it to the granny. So it was a great season for them. They played some really good footy, and yeah, I really loved how the Dogs went about it this season. And that is the video done and dusted, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this video. I'll catch you in another video very soon. Cheers.